Frame data is intimidating, but in reality, it's not all that complicated. Frame data is the amount of frames that comprise any given move, from a jab, to a fireball, to a dragon punch. Since Street Fighter V runs at 60 frames per second, one frame is the equivalent of 1/60th of a second. First, let's examine Dhalsim's standing jab. You have startup frames, active frames, and recovery frames. There's also hit stun and block stun to consider in the event that your move connects with an opponent. Startup frames are how long the move takes to animate before it hits the opponent. The less of these, the better. Quicker beats slower, generally speaking. Fast normals are often safe on block, so the risk factor is low when pressing these buttons. Most characters' quickest attack is a jab or a short, with the exception of Zangief, who has a 1-frame super. The frames where the attack connects with your opponent are called the active frames. A very small percentage of the total frames are active. Special moves are the exception, of course, such as the Dragon Punch, or the Fireball, which has infinite active frames until it dissipates. Generally speaking, you want more active frames for your moves, because that gives the move more opportunities to hit something. Recovery frames determine how long you have to wait before you can act again. The longer the recovery, the bigger the punish. You can't block or do anything else while you're in your recovery frames, so place your attacks carefully. The benefit to knowing frame data is understanding when moves are safe and unsafe. These values are represented within block advantage and hit advantage statistics in the data itself. Use hit advantage to figure out if a move links into another. For instance, Cammy's standing medium punch is +7 on hit, which allows her to link into crouching medium kick, which has 7 startup frames. Counter hits usually offer more frame advantage than normal hits by a value of 2, with the exception of crush counters, which offer just ridiculous amounts. Moves that are negative on block can sometimes be punished, provided that you have an attack that starts up in that amount of frames or less. Other moves offer advantage on block, which gives you leeway to apply more pressure and possibly nail that counter hit setup. Frame traps occur when your opponent attempts to do a move while you are plus on block. Bison's standing roundhouse is +3 on block. If Bison hits crouch strong, and Mika attempts to press standing jab, she will be counter hit because of the advantage the roundhouse provided. Let's reverse the tables here. Mika's forward fierce is +3 on block, and Bison's stand short is 4 frames. Normally, her stand strong is 5 frame startup, but because of the previous block advantage, it's essentially a 2-frame normal, meaning it's gonna stuff absolutely everything but the most invincible of moves. There are many traits that moves can have. For example, Ryu's EX Dragon Punch has startup invincibility, so it'll stuff situations even when you are positive on block. Zangief's EX SPD is throw invincible, so you can't throw him out of it even if you throw before he throws. Ryu's low forward is +2 on hit, which means you can't combo normally, but since it's special cancelable, you can cancel into that Hadouken for a combo. Nakali's sweep is minus on block and thus punishable, but he can cancel it into V-trigger, which renders the move safe. Frame data doesn't take into account spacing. Even though Cammy's spiral arrow is negative on block, it can be done at max range, and due to the distance she ends up from the opponent, she's safe. The same thing applies to Birdie's normals, which are super unsafe on paper, but are difficult to actually punish because of their range. As we stated previously, Mika's forward fierce is +3 on block, but that is if you hit it on the first active frame. If you hit it on a later active frame, you actually get more block advantage, and this is called a meaty attack. This works because the hit or block stun frames trigger once the attack hits an opponent, and if it hits on a later frame, you recover sooner, thus getting more block advantage. Meaties are useful when applying wake-up pressure or doing some ambiguous air reset. A couple misconceptions here. One of them is that players actually count frames. We don't have counters running in our head for every frame per second, we're not robots. A more likely scenario is that they just know the startup frames of your moves and their moves, and they know what is safe and what's unsafe. Another misconception is that frame data is mandatory for high-level play. It's simply not true. Many old school players play on instinct alone, and they learn the matchups just by playing them and trying things out. That's a perfectly valid approach, but frame data can help you figure things out without actually playing the game. So if you're at work on a lunch break or something, you can figure out what punishes Karen's whatever. That's what frame data is really for, is finding out what's safe and unsafe, and also finding out what can be comboed into. So that's going to do it for 5-Minute Fundamentals this time. Stay tuned for more, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.